So we're back. Oh, happy campers. I'm Spike.
I'm Chris.
That's Chris. Welcome to a special edition of Geekin Out. Now, I've already apologized in a prior episode to everybody for getting their hopes up about Batman. Okay, about the new Batman movie, because we learned, they're going to have Riddler in this next movie. They're going to have Penguin and Catwoman in this movie. Robert Pattinson's going to be the new Batman, all this other stuff. But the thing that guarantees the next Batman movie is going to stink is the fact there's a Robin in it. And we all know if Robin's there, the movie's going to stink. It's a guaranteed fact. Water is wet, the sky is blue, and Robin ruins the movie. Okay, so I've already had to make one apology. And while I'm apologizing, I want to make a second apology here real quick to Chris, because I'm going to be mouthing off here for a while. This is almost going to be a monologue because I've got some things to say here. And Chris is pretty much along for the ride. If you can get a word in edgewise, please feel free to do so. But by and large, we're going to be talking about comics because I have one more apology to make. This is the biggest one. This apology is to Geoff Johns. Okay? Geoff Johns, for those of you who don't know, you need to find out who he is. Okay? I found out who Geoff Johns was back long ago when I was still following comic books. Caught his run on Justice Society of America, his run on The Flash, so to speak, and his run on Green Lantern, where he came up with the Yellow Lantern Corps, and then Lantern Corps War, and then Blackest Night, Brightest Day. That was all Geoff Johns. All these different. It was Geoff Johns who actually made the yellow weakness to wet yellow for Green Lanterns. He actually made that make sense. If that made any sense. And then he turned it into being a rookie weakness, because it's one thing to have no fear. Everybody has fear, you just don't realize it. And if you don't realize you have fear, you can get a Green Lantern ring, but it'll be weak to yellow until you actually face down your fear and overcome it, and then the yellow doesn't affect you anymore. Fear, because yellow is the color of fear. Okay, that's all Geoff Johns. Now, the reason I need to apologize to Geoff Johns, because I have not been reading comics regularly probably since DC Rebirth in 2016. I've picked up a few books, and then for several years before that I hadn't read anything, because quite frankly there was nothing out there really worth reading. Okay,
Where they never change stuff.
The New 52 did not appeal to me at all. I didn't care for it. I thought it was a waste of time. That was DC's effort back in 2011, I believe, to just reboot everything and everybody all at once so that kids would think it was cool or something. But, okay. So that was about the time I dropped out. Haven't picked up many comic books since then. The few I've picked up have been like old issues or collections, trade paperbacks, stuff like that. And then 2 years ago, I find out Geoff Johns has a new project. And Geoff Johns is one of the very few writers I'll pay attention to, because I'll see his name on the horizon somewhere, and I'll be like, oh, what's he doing? He's doing something called Doomsday Clock. That's what this video is going to be about. This Doomsday Clock, like a year and a half after its first issue, is finally published issue number 10. Okay. Doomsday Clock is a comic book that is based on the idea of integrating the Watchmen characters into the DC universe. Okay, and that look on Chris's face tells you everything you need to know about my reaction, especially, but the reaction generally from the public to the idea of the Watchmen being in the DC universe. Like, what?
No, I mean, when you first mentioned this to me, and you said Doomsday Clock, I was like, wait, didn't that have something to do with Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen?
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't for sure until you mentioned it, and then I'm like,
that's the one.
So I'm right, okay.
Okay, so needless to say, a lot of fans, especially the old school fans like me, who have been following comics since at least the early 80s, we knew who the Watchmen was, knew all the characters, we knew what was involved with it, and we were all kind of like, ugh, we didn't know how this would turn out. And quite frankly, it could have turned out poorly. Alan Moore absolutely despised the project because he was the writer on The Watchmen. He had zero say over whether it was used or not because he didn't have any copyright. The copyright stayed with DC Comics. So DC had every right to do it. This sounded to me like another another Dan DiDio douche drinker production. Okay, Dan DiDio is the executive, is the big guy at DC Comics, the comic shop publisher. And yeah, he can act like a douche drinker sometimes. Okay, he is. He hates the Justice Society, which means he's already my arch enemy, and he is not a big fan of the Flash and all the other Flashes and his extended family and stuff. For some reason, Dan DiDio hates families, which is why he hated the Justice Society. He hated the Flash. Pretty much everything Geoff Johns ever did, Dan DiDio found some way to undo it some way or another, except for the Green Lantern stuff, and even then he managed to screw with it. Okay. My apology here is not to Dan DiDio, because Dan DiDio sucks. My apology here is to Geoff Johns, because I ever doubted you for a second that you knew what you were doing. Because I just found out, now again, I have not been reading the comics, because I found out what Doomsday Clock was all about, and I tried looking in on the first couple of issues, and I was like, God, this sucks. Because I didn't get it. I didn't know what he was doing with it. The problem with telling a long-term story in monthly installments, especially when you can't make the monthly schedule, Geoff. I don't know if that's you or if it's Gary Frank doing it, because Gary Frank's the artist on it. One of you guys, whatever, doesn't matter. The point is, I didn't see what you were doing to begin with. I could see that you were introducing Rorschach, you had introduced Ozymandias, the world's smartest man from Watchmen. All these other Watchmen characters being introduced one at a time, okay? And slowly and surely. And I knew somewhere, some way, somehow Dr. Manhattan was going to wind up in there, because it's just too tempting not to use it, okay? So I stick around to about issue number 3 and I give up. And I'm like, this doesn't appeal to me. And I walked away, not just from Doomsday Clock, but I walked away from DC, I walked away from the comics industry pretty much entirely. I would still watch superhero movies and stuff, but I wasn't reading books, okay? Doomsday Clock number 10 came out this past Wednesday, along with Heroes in Crisis number 9, which is something I need to get to at some point, because that was another one where I was sitting there rolling my eyes when it started, and now it's changed. That last issue changed everything in a heartbeat. Okay. So, like I said, let me explain. I've already explained what Doomsday Clock is all about. Let me explain why number 10 is so important, okay? So, we brought the Watchmen into the DC universe, okay, into the comic books. Dr. Manhattan's there. He can change the universe with a thought, okay, because he sits there and he thinks it happens, okay? Nobody, who's going to be able to stop that? He's essentially a walking, talking, big blue god. He's blue, by the way, like a Smurf.
With big.
He can, and he's a nudist. Okay, let's just go ahead and get that out of the way. Now, so Dr. Manhattan can change the universe with a thought. He gets to the DC universe and he looks around and he's like, "It's okay, but I could do better, I think." So Dr. Manhattan decides to start screwing with the DC universe. First, he kills the original Green Lantern, Alan Scott. Alan Scott, when he became Green Lantern, like around 1940, okay, this is way, way back in Justice Society days, back before World War II. He was a railroad engineer. Alan Scott was a railroad engineer, and he had found this big green lantern in a curiosity shop, and he had it with him. The train wrecks. He's dying there on his side in the engine, and he reaches out and he sees his lantern, and the lantern's glowing. The lantern's glowing, so he reaches for the lantern. The lantern infuses him with a green flame, and he becomes the Green Lantern. Okay, so that's how he got his power. Dr. Manhattan killed him by moving the lantern about an extra 6 inches so he couldn't reach it, and dies to the train wreck. That prevents the Justice Society of America from ever forming, because Alan Scott was one of the primary guys who formed the Justice Society. And so Dr. Manhattan, with that one dick move, decided to just screwed with everything after that. Okay.
Yeah.
So that actually wound up resulting, because the JSA was never formed. It started the New 52. Okay, that's where the New 52 came from. All from that one action. And then then Manhattan decides, well, it's all right. It's still not bleak enough, though. Here's the Superman guy. He keeps interfering with the things I want to see happen. So he kills Ma and Pa Kent. and as while Superman's a teenager. So as a result, because Ma and Pa Kent are not there, Superman doesn't become active until later, and as a result, the Legion of Superheroes somehow never forms, because Superman was not the influence he had been before, with Ma and Pa Kent there to guide him on. So the Legion of Superheroes cease to exist. Again, because of Dr. Manhattan, nothing direct. He doesn't actually obliterate the teams or anything, he just prevents it from happening. So Dr. Manhattan's screwing with time left and right. Okay. Then comes issue number 10. Everything's looking dark. Manhattan keeps seeing these visions of Superman punching him in the throat. Okay? Just he sees Superman angry with his fist reared back, and then he sees blackness. So he doesn't know, does Dr. Manhattan cease to exist because Superman kills him? Or does the universe cease to exist and Dr. Manhattan's still there, but everything just disintegrated around them? He didn't know. Issue number 10 introduces a very, very interesting idea, and that's called the metaverse. Okay, so the DC universe is not a universe. Okay, it's not a multiverse. Okay, a universe means there's a single Earth, a single Mars, a single Krypton, all the other everything's just one in a universe. The multiverse means there can be more. The New 52 said there were 52 universes, 52 Earths, 52 Kryptons, blah 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 blah. Metaverse is a different idea completely. The entire DC everything revolves around Superman. Okay? Every origin you've ever seen of Superman is true. They're all correct. They all count. They all happened. But only the most recent one counts. That makes no sense at all. But it's a brilliant idea. Okay? And this is why I'm apologizing to Geoff Johns, because what he did, there was actually an idea called hyper time, which meant everything could happen at the same time, but just separated a little bit. Not necessarily into dimensions, just different possibilities. It was kind of a quantum solution to a multiverse, okay? Without having a whole other universe because some butterfly sneezed somewhere. Here you had the butterfly sneeze, but in hyper time, the butterfly sneezes to the left in one way, he sneezes to the right in another, and they diverge until the after effects are done, and then they merge back together into the same universe. Okay? That was the idea of the basic idea of hyper time as I understood it, and maybe I'm wrong. If I am, somebody will yell at me in the comments. But the idea of a metaverse is hyper time on steroids, okay? And it is an excellent idea, okay? Okay, Superman's origin keeps changing. He had an origin in 1938 where he rockets to Earth and boom, he's Superman, okay? That was the golden age. In the silver age, in the 50s, he's in the rocket, he's a baby, he crashes to Earth, he's found by Ma and Pa Kent. He starts growing up. Ma and Pa Kent die when he graduates high school. He goes on to Metropolis, becomes Superman, and then he gets involved in all these wacky adventures and stuff. And Lois Lane winds up turning into a black woman because of a really racist suntan cabinet, and that's Silver Age, okay. And then in 1986, John Byrne reboots it after Crisis on Infinite Earths, and we got another Superman origin. Suddenly, Ma and Pa Kent are still alive when Superman's an adult, which was awesome. Again, family, which means Dan DiDio hated it. Okay, now, moving on. And late in the 90s, again, they rebooted the origin. Now Pa Kent dies while Superman is still a teenager, and it's up to Ma Kent to finish getting him across the line. He gets across the line. All right. So, under the metaverse keeps changing the origin of Superman. The original, when Superman first crashed on Earth from Krypton, was in 1938. Okay? And then suddenly it happened again, but it was now it's the same crash from the same planet Krypton, but now it's 1956 for the Silver Age. Okay? Same thing, same Superman. Okay? It's 1956. Then it's 1986. Here comes the rocket from Krypton again. Lands on the planet. Same Superman, same Rocket, same Krypton, same Ma and Pa Kent, same everything, but now it's 1986. The only thing that changes is the time and a few of the minor details. Okay?
So you're saying no matter what Dr. Manhattan actually does, it all ends with the same result as Superman beating the heck out of it.
That's what they got to figure out. So, well, hold on. Don't get ahead of me yet. Let me finish explaining this. Because
So not the same.
he keeps rebooting, okay? Superman keeps rebooting, and they all count. That's just it. You remember the 1938 Superman? He's still there. He's right in front of you. He's just still 20-something years old, and his circumstances have changed, but it's still Superman, right? Same Superman, right? Okay. Batman, when he came out in 1939, he had a gun, and he shot criminals when he first started, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays, Batman would never do that. He despises guns ever since his parents were gunned down in an alley and his mom's pearl necklace spilled out onto the alley of Crime Alley. That's still the same Batman. Okay? It's still Batman. Okay? Same Batman, the Batman who shot criminals with a gun, and the little kid Bruce Wayne who saw his mommy's pearls bounce on. That was a 2007 edition, I believe. That was from the movies Batman Begins that started that. Or it's the 1989 movie, I can't remember. One of them started that, okay? That's a more recent thing. It's still the same Batman, okay? He was there in 1939. He was there in 1940 when he found Robin. He was there in 1956 when they rebooted Batman and everybody else because into the Silver Age. That's the Julie Schwartz era. If you don't know who Julie Schwartz is, look him up. He's an awesome guy. He's responsible for a lot of the modern DC stuff. The Flash, it's the same Flash, okay? Yeah, the Flash is slightly different because there's Jay Garrick was the original Flash, and then there was Barry Allen, and then there was Wally West. And they just kind of took turns there. Barry Allen has always been Barry Allen. Jay Garrick has always been Jay Garrick. Wally West has always been Wally West. The details change, but it's the same guy. And he just keeps moving forward in time. The metaverse is now, as of Doomsday Clock number 10, the DC METAverse is a living, breathing, intelligent thing. Okay? And when it needs circumstances to change to continue its own survival, it changes the circumstances, and it all centers around Earth in general, and it centers around Superman in particular. Why? Because Superman was the first. He was DC's first superhero. Superman. Well, Slam Bradley was around before that, but see, Superman was the first huge superhero. So he's the first, he's the nexus. He's the one who's been there the longest, so he's the nexus everything builds around. That's why Dr. Manhattan's seeing visions of Superman. That's the DC Metaverse striking back. Now, the DC Metaverse is not only intelligently designed, like religions teach us, God created the universe, he's an intelligent creature, we're created in his image. The DC Metaverse wasn't just intelligently created, it is intelligently maintained. That same intelligence that created the DC universe is keeping it going. Who could that metaverse be? Who could make up the metaverse? Well, obviously it's Superman, Batman, all the superheroes, all the supervillains, all the innocent bystanders, Earth, Mars, Oa, Krypton, all the, well, what's left of Krypton, all the other stuff. They all make up the DC universe, right? But the metaverse includes the DC universe. And it includes the writers at DC Comics and the artists at DC Comics. Because they're the ones who control the story. They're the ones who are creating, they're the ones who are the fickle hand of fate reaching into the DC universe and changing things around. When things seem darkest and all hope is lost, they go in and they make the little touch. They pull off the miracles. Okay? But wait, that's not all. The DC editors are there. The DC editors are like, you know what? This is fine, but it can be better. Let's try this. And so they start changing things, and suddenly Superman moves, his origin moves forward 30 years. It moves forward 10 years. It moves forward as often. Okay, Green Arrow's got the goatee this week. Oh, wait, he looks better clean shaven. Okay, so he's clean shaven for 10 years. Oh, you know what? He was cool with the yellow goatee. They put the goatee on him. That's the metaverse. there's one other very important part of the metaverse that that hasn't been discussed yet. Okay, and again, this is not all coming out in print on Doomsday Clock number 10, but you can see where Geoff Johns is leading this. The metaverse really depends on you, me, and every DC fan, and every reader, and everybody who knows who Superman is, and Batman, and Wonder Woman. We're the ones who keep hope alive. We're the hope in the DC metaverse. We're a part of the DC metaverse. Our Earth is the actual center of the entire DC metaverse. Everything depends on us and our Earth, but especially on us as DC fans. Without us, the DC universe ceases to exist. Superman dies, Dr. Manhattan wins. For that reason, I want to say a special thank you to Geoff Johns. I want to apologize to you, Geoff. You are now officially on the shorthand list, and it's a very short list of writers I will read anything by, and I will never question a thing you write. Okay, you can write anything. You can write a comic book, I'll read it. Okay, I'll take it for gospel. You want to read a graphic novel, I will read it. If you want to write a prose novel, I'll read it. Write poetry, I'll read it. Write a Chinese menu, I'll read it. Write anything you want, for that matter. Write some alphabet cereal if you want, I'll read it. Okay, I'll never turn it down. Write a fortune cookie, I'll read that. You know what, Geoff Johns? Have a cup of tea, and I will read your tea leaves. That is how much I trust you. You have made converted an old lapsed comic book fan back into a comic book fan. And buddy, I'm going to find us a comic book shop somewhere, some weekend, and we're just going to geek. We're just going to start digging through comics, and I've got some catching up to do. So, your reactions before we close up for the day? Enough said. So until next time, I'm Spike.
I'm Chris.
He's Chris. We'll see you next time. God bless, God keep, God speed, and God keep you, especially Geoff Johns. Take care out there.